So if we're going to have a conversation about teen pregnancy in Oklahoma and here in central Oklahoma, I think it's probably best to start with kind of two realities, two facts. One is the rate in Oklahoma is really high compared to almost every other state. I mean, it's second highest in the nation. On the other side, that rate has been declining, and even most recently, we've seen quite a significant decrease in the rate here in Oklahoma County. Your organization, Laura, one of its goals by 2020 has already been met now, a third of reduction. So, what is working here in Oklahoma County when it comes to reducing the high rate of teen pregnancy?
A lot of things is the good news. We have a number of partners that we're working with here in central Oklahoma to implement strategies that are in the educational arena, in the medical realm, as well as in the general community in order to reduce teen pregnancy. One of the things that we know is working is directly in the schools. So we have health educators who are part of our collaboration of partners that are working in the schools with comprehensive sexuality education curricula. So they're in the classrooms daily teaching kids about how their bodies work, how to stay safe, how to make healthy choices, how to have good relationships, how to set boundaries, how to keep themselves safe from dating violence. So that's one of the things one of the strategies that we know is working really well, both from the feedback that we're getting from both kids and their parents and the classroom teachers, as well as just the research that these curricula are based on.
Yeah, and obviously that being in the school component is so important. I mean, Katie, that's your job in the school, working with students. What does your day look like?
So my day can vary from day to day very much, but mostly it's working with all of our pregnant and parenting students in the school. So the ones that we've identified as pregnant or parenting, so to prevent that reoccurrent pregnancy. But then also the students that come in that have just questions. I think I could be pregnant. I had unprotected sex. I want to start having sex. How am I going to do that safely? I think I may have an STD. My friend has an STD. Anything along those sexual lines of things that they're learning in the classroom, or they've heard from a friend, or anything like that, they just come in and ask.
Yeah. And I mean, Darla, I know, you're writing about this issue, and one of your stories, you were spending some time with Katie, and just kind of that, it was just a whirlwind of questions, being thrown at her from students, and to be able to have that answer and that education seems like such a crucial part of this, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was one thing that struck me when I was talking to Katie, was just the variety of questions and situations that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I know that you are a phenomenal resource for those students and help them in so many ways. What are some of the biggest challenges that you encounter with the students you're working with who are pregnant or parenting, that you try to work with them and help them through?
I think the biggest one with the ones that we do get that are pregnant early on is telling their parents. How do I tell my parents? How are they going to react? And then once we get past that, if they've already told their parents, or we're past that, is now what do I do? How am I going to stay in school? How am I going to continue with my goals with this pregnancy? And so letting them know that every one of those goals is completely 100% obtainable for them, but it's just maybe now we have a speed bump. Now you have this child to bring along with you, and how are you going to do that? And so, what resources are available to help them with that, how they're going to continue with school, go to college if that was their goal, whatever they're going to do, that the district completely supports them in that and will help them do that.
Is that a tough kind of transition, so to speak, when you've got this message of trying to prevent teen pregnancy, and often talking about the challenges that come with having to now have a child as a teenager, but then if a teen does become pregnant, how do you obviously the conversation changes, does the tone change? Kind of what does that transition look like? Because you're trying to prevent teen pregnancy, but the reality is it does, even though that rate is going down, it still happens, and then there is a need for additional support and education, right? Very much so.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say yes, absolutely. We have a very high, in Oklahoma County, I know our rate of kids having a second pregnancy while they're still teens is very high. And so that's, like Katie mentioned, that's one of the things she really works with them on. But we work, I'd say, throughout everything we do, we work really hard to try to frame teen pregnancy as something that presents challenges and maybe makes it harder for a teen to achieve their goal, but we work really hard of not framing it negatively. So we don't want any teen that does find themselves pregnant or is parenting as a teen to feel like there's a negative stigma around that or any kind of, shaming language. We try really hard to avoid all of that and just simply provide them the resources like through Katie's program.
I think that's the big thing is a lot of them will come in and the first concern they have is, am I going to judge them? Because that's who they're going to talk to first. And the first thing I tell any of my moms when I find out they're pregnant is congratulations. Because no matter what age you are in your life, you should be congratulated on becoming a mama and your pregnancy. And most of them had not heard that. They're like, oh, okay. And I go, because you should be congratulated. You're going to be a parent no matter what you choose to do with this child. If you're going to give it up for adoption and parent, or you're going to, keep this baby, you should still be congratulated. It should still be a happy moment in your life, even if you're like, oh my gosh, my world is crumbling around me. And then it's like, all right, we're going to get through this. What's your goal? This is now a speed bump in your road, but you're still down that exact same path that you were going to go. And just reiterating that to them over and over again, and talking to them about that and explaining that to them. And sometimes they just need that reminder regularly. And some of them, it's the turning point they need to actually get back on the path they needed to be on. So, and then some of them are just amazing and they stay on that path and it is like the tiniest speed bump and you wouldn't even know it. And they just keep going just as like, all right, this is just another thing I got going on in my life. It's like, my car broke down today, and they just keep right on plugging along. And they're amazing without anything I offer for them.
Yeah. I know some of the girls that you've introduced me to have used that situation as an opportunity that has fueled them to achieve things they say that they never would have before, because they feel such a responsibility to their child to do better and to provide a good life for them. So it's really cool to watch.
It's a nice reminder to some of them, maybe if they were ones that maybe got in trouble a little bit more in school or skipped a little bit more often, that you're a mom now. And they need to remind themselves of that a little bit. You met Guadalupe and Jackie. And I know he had shared with you some of his past and things that had happened, and he, wasn't the most ideal youth growing up. But then he's like, but then I became a dad. And that first week that he was a dad, he showed up, look at my baby, this is my baby. And from that point on, he was a completely different individual. It's an individual we all knew was there the whole time, and we knew how amazing and wonderful he was, but he needed to know that. He needed something to work for and needed that self-worth. And he went down a completely different path. He graduated, never thought he'd walk across the high school stage, never had aspirations to go to college. He's now enrolled to go to Metro Tech. He's like, I'm gonna go to college. I'm like, well, you're gonna do what? I'm sorry, I don't understand. But he did, and he's now gonna go to Metro Tech. And it's something he never would have done, but now he's a dad. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I really think Oklahoma City Public Schools deserves a lot of credit for having this program and dedicating the resources for Katie's position and now second position in order to provide those resources for kids so that it doesn't have to end their educational career. Their goal is to get them to the graduation stage and beyond. And they do whatever it takes. I mean, anybody who knows Katie or has heard her stories know that she does whatever they need to remove those barriers. Well,
I imagine for so many, young teenagers that find themselves as a mom to be, many of them probably don't feel like they have an advocate. Even if they do maybe, live with their parents, this is not a comfortable topic to talk about with your parents. So a lot of this is really just a conversation part. Really having someone, that you can feel safe to ask these questions and to speak with. As you said, they probably have never heard someone congratulate them for it. They probably have not heard anyone really talk to them about this in any detail. What, so we talk about that kind of relationship building in the schools and that kind of advocacy role that you play into. There's also that educational component. A lot of people will probably, feel like when they hear about the issue of teen pregnancy, well, the solution is that, the teens shouldn't be having sex. That is one option, but also is not necessarily a reality. Tell me a little bit about the education component that goes into what we're seeing here in local schools when it comes to trying to educate teenagers about practicing safe sex and what kind of things are they, what are some of the most common questions you hear from teenagers?
So we believe the members of our collaboration believe that teens really deserve to have the information about their own bodies, what body parts are, how they work, and what happens in the reproductive system, and then be able to have the information they need and the tools they need to make healthy and safe choices. So as I mentioned, we're in the school classrooms throughout the year doing curricula. We have several different that the schools can choose from, and that looks like, you know, our health educators in a classroom for a full period of time going through lessons, and most of them are anywhere from 8 to 13 lessons long. The parents are made aware that the program is happening. They need to give permission for their kids to be involved in it, and then we always make the curriculum available. So it really covers a wide range of topics, both the biology and physiology piece of it, and how to prevent pregnancies and STIs, but also what is a healthy relationship? What does it look like? What kind of boundaries do you as an individual have the power to set for yourself? A lot of kids don't necessarily have that kind of information taught to them or at their fingertips on a regular basis. You know, sex and sexuality is something that as a society we have in the past tended to sweep under the rug and keep quiet, but we believe that's the reason why Oklahoma has the second highest teen birth rate in the nation, is because of that kind of historical attitude about sex. So we're on a mission to change that culture and to provide the information they need.
And it's a co-ed class, right? I mean,
that's what we recommend. We really try to we request that of the teachers. If a classroom teacher or a principal feels really strongly, we'll go with what they want.
But a lot of it is co-ed, and I think that's good too, because boys need to learn about contraception. They might not be taking the pills, but they need to learn about it just as much as a female needs to learn about male condoms, even though they're not the ones wearing them. Both sides need to understand how it works, and you will get some of the most questions from the males about how birth control pills work. Well, how does menstruation? How does her period work? Why does it work like this? Because they don't know. They don't even teach the women about this, let alone the boys about this.
If we don't tell them, they won't know. And the other thing I think we're trying to do through keeping it co-ed is really, as you said, to foster a healthy conversation about these topics. So boys aren't afraid to ask girls, or vice versa, or you know, kids in general are just comfortable talking to their peers and especially their trusted adults about these issues. Yeah,
well, and I mean, you may be a co-ed class, and you know, and boys and girls are both, you know, learning the same lesson, but you know, they may not, their sexual partner may not be in the class. I mean, you may have, you know, a male student who's, you know, with a female student didn't go through the education, so they may be the only one kind of bringing some of that knowledge, or vice versa, right?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah. Or they might not be in our district, and it might be in a district that they don't even get any of the sexual education at all. And so they're able to take that information to them, or let them know where they can go for services. That's, I think, the biggest thing they get out of it, is they have control of their sexual health and how to take control of their sexual health when and if they're ready to start having sex. I think that's one of the bigger things they get, that because no part of their health do they ever really get a huge say. You know, it's now time for you to get your shots. It's now time for you to go for your physical. But this is the one time they really get a say in their health. And it's probably the first time in their lives they've had that say, or they've had to make a doctor's appointment, or they've had to go to a clinic by themselves. And I think they learn a lot from the educators on that. They explain to them where you can go, and how to go, and how much it costs, or if it doesn't cost, what age requirements. They really get into that with them. And I think that's real important, because it's a misnomer. A lot of them think you must be 18 to buy condoms, or you must be a certain age to do this. And so they explain a lot of that in the classes to them as well.
Yeah. So, you know, as we kind of wrap up here, I mean, so the rate is trending in the right direction. Is there any risk, you know, what's the biggest challenge in continuing to see, you know, the teen pregnancy rate decline in Oklahoma County and Oklahoma? I mean, what needs to continue to happen here moving forward?
You know, I think that the additional, what we need to further decrease the teen birth rate comes down to support, and both in terms of funding support so that we can expand our capacity to expand our activities into more places, but also just that community support in terms of what is our culture, what is our you know, attitude, both within our family structure, but within our schools. Thrive in its collaboration is really trying to touch every aspect of the community so that teens know that they have a trusted adult they can turn to, whether it is their teacher or a coach or an after-school mentor or a faith leader, and certainly parents. That is something that we're working hard to foster, that family communication about sexual health. So just continued support, I'd say, is the biggest thing we need. You know, some of the biggest risks, you really asked about risks, biggest risks would be loss of funding, which we have faced from federal sources. But we're also working really hard to diversify our supporters and reach out to more private funders and individual donors. And we've seen great success in that so far, so I expect that to continue. Our community has been very supportive of this issue and all of our partners in our collaboration and now with Thrive. So we've just been very gratified by that.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about it at the start of this conversation, you know, ranking second in the nation for the teen pregnancy rate. You know, for a lot of our readers and viewers, the idea of Oklahoma being at the bottom of the list or the top of the wrong list is not going to be anything new. But here's an example of where we are starting to see some change. But when you talk about
significant, rapid change.
Yeah, and when you think about where we appear on a variety of other lists, I think it's important. I mean, this is an issue that really touches a lot of those issues, right? I mean, access to education,
Absolutely.
Poverty, hunger,
workforce development.
Yeah, I mean, these are kind of things. I'm sure, Darla, as you were spending some time with these new teen parents. I mean, I'm sure it was apparent in many ways a lot of the challenges now that they're going to have to face. It seems like they're determined, but there's going to be a lot of. It's not going to be easy, moving forward for them to continue their education and work and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely, like you said, Ben, I think it does touch on all of those issues, and the teens who I did meet with, they are very determined. The father's just started college this week. The mom will be starting her senior year once she gets back from her maternity leave, and is already talking about her plans for the future, wanting to go to college and be an EMT or an architect. So they do have a lot of challenges ahead, but I think they're definitely determined and have some great support in their corner in the way of, I know Katie's been a great resource to them, and they have some great friends who've really helped them through the pregnancy and now navigating their first couple weeks as parents. So I think that support is so important.
Yeah,
for teen parents.
And it seems like as this rate trends in the right direction, it's got to have a positive impact on some of these other metrics that we commonly talk about.
It's all interrelated, as you've kind of framed the issue. It's intertwined with poverty, with workforce development, educational attainment. So all of those, quote, the lists we don't want to be on, are all related to each other. And we know that teen pregnancy can either be an on-ramp to generational poverty, or it can actually, the prevention of a pregnancy can actually help an individual perhaps get themselves out of generational poverty through educational attainment and, better career options. So that's why we think it's really a foundational issue to poverty alleviation.
Yeah.
So that we think it all kind of rolls uphill, if you will, and helps our population become more prepared for just the greatest, goals and hopes and dreams that they hope to achieve for themselves and their kids.
Yeah. Well, things are moving in the right direction, so keep up the good work. And good luck with the new school year starting, although it doesn't sound like there was much of a break for you this summer. Still,
oh, no,
still
that's
active.
okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for your work, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Smith.